All right, welcome to Plug and Pay, which is a talk show where we invite payroll professionals from all around the world to talk with us about interesting, thought-provoking topics that are shaping the global payroll space. My name is Mark Oliver Fiedler. I'm the founder and CEO of Payzaar, and I'm the host of the show. We release new episodes of Plug and Pay every 2 weeks. And you can find them on our LinkedIn channel, on our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn page, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. If you like the content, then please make sure you subscribe to the channels, click the like button, leave a comment. This is great to help us promote the content that we're producing here and make other people aware of it as well. Now, for today's podcast, I'm super excited to welcome Paul Kirwan to the show. Paul, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time. Paul is the head of European payroll at Tenable. And Paul, as we like to do with all of our guests that come on, we always start off by just trying to learn a little bit about their background, their experience, and how you ended up in the role that you're playing today.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, I suppose, first of all, for the invite. Great to be part of it, and really excited to share some experiences and I suppose get stuck into whatever's going to come out of this. It'd be very interesting. So I suppose I'll kick off. Yeah, how I got into payroll was I actually I had an interest in the employment law side of it. So based out of Ireland, I started Googling some courses and all of this kind of thing. And the only one that came up was through the Irish Payroll Association. And so it was kind of half payroll calculation, half the employment law side. So I was okay, let's give it a whirl. And so yeah, I did that, the course, got it done in super quick time. I think at the time it was a couple of years ago now. So I know it took me less than 6 months to do the entire course, which was great, and fell into it. Really, really loved it. Calculations came pretty quick. Really enjoyed the law side of it. From that, then I got into started working in a company. That was like 80 kilometers away from home, so I was up early, right down through Dublin to the far end of Dublin, and 5 days a week, and it was really, really enjoyable. We got stuck into loads of different projects from the get-go. So obviously went in as a junior, learned up along the way.
And was that already a payroll role where you started, or not really directly related to payroll?
Yes, it was in the payroll team, and what they were doing was they were implementing a time and attendance system.
Okay.
Up along the way. So when I was doing the time and attendance, I started getting training then on payrolls and started running some payrolls. So they had 5 or 6 different payrolls based out of Ireland and the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So over time, I started getting involved in that. Running the payrolls from kind of start to finish when the time and attendance system was kind of finished and finalized. The manager had left, and I had moved into a different department at this point. But when she left, then they got a replacement in, and this girl didn't stay too long. But just as she was leaving, they couldn't get a replacement. They said, "Hey, Paul, do you fancy going back up into payroll and running the payroll for the entire company?" I'm like, okay, why not? So that's what happened, and I stayed in that company for a couple of years then, and it was really, really great experience. You get getting really stuck into different projects, and we changed payroll providers, like software, all of this kind of stuff, and it was kind of like a baptism of fire, if you want to put it that way. Mm-hmm. So you get like project management, and then you're kind of starting at the beginning, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, what am I doing here? Then we started taking on some EMEA payrolls, all like a couple of the Nordics, which are notoriously difficult to with rules and regulations around them. So every part of it kind of felt not easy but comfortable, and I enjoyed doing it. So after there, I left and went to a bureau, Entrada, Paycheck Plus, and got vast experience in there. Like I know from working within a company, you only have a certain amount of processing elements, but then you see what other companies are doing and what they're processing, and you're gaining all of this knowledge and experience. And when you work in a bureau, you really learn how to work efficiently, because your workload can be massive, and that efficiencies and Six Sigma kind of works through, and you're always looking at ways to make your life easy, whilst getting things done 100%. Obviously, going down, that's the most important part. So that was really, really brilliant experience in Paycheck Plus. Yeah, so that's kind of the bureau, and then I ended up in Tenable 5 years ago, which has been super. It's been what a journey we've been on since I joined. We had, I think, up to 10 or 11 entities in EMEA at the time, and now we're up to 19. So we've onboarded obviously new countries, and we've expanded, and the team has changed, and we've expanded the team, and just kind of over the course of the last couple of years, just making improvements all of the time. And I suppose within the payroll process, and within the team, and where we're going, and what we need to do, and you're looking at kind of things holistically, rather than, okay, this is just like a small thing. It's not a small thing anymore. It's huge, and you're busy, and you're constantly busy, and so finding that downtime to kind of stand back and look at it as a bigger picture it can be challenging, but at the same time, it's a good thing to do.
Well, listen, one of the things that kind of led us to reach out to you and ask whether you would come on the show is that we actually heard from one of our previous guests, and I suppose one of your colleagues, Johanna Sirbu. And for those listeners out there who haven't seen that episode, go check it out. It's on the YouTube channel, on LinkedIn. It's a great episode with Johanna as well. But she mentioned during that conversation that I had with her, that she mentioned your name and said, you should have a conversation with Paul. He's extremely passionate about team development and team building. And so that's one of the topics that I wanted to dive into a little bit, and just get your thoughts and your experience to start with. In your current role, you've already mentioned the team has changed, the team has grown. Tell us a little bit about your approach to, leading a team in a multinational environment that comes with new challenges, every month, every quarter, right? How do you approach that?
I suppose it's kind of twofold, I suppose. So when I came on board with Tenable, as I said, I had some EMEA experience, and but definitely not to where we are at the moment. So from leading a team and looking at a team and how you're bringing the team along on your journey, I kind of go back to roots and see how my managers were with me when I started off, and what I liked, what I didn't like, how it works for me, how I learned, how kind of I took on board information and things like that. So initially when I joined Tenable, we were looking at things, dealing with countries down in APAC and LATAM, also along with EMEA. So luckily enough, when we got a team in APAC and in LATAM, that I was able to hand those payrolls over. So we were just dealing within our own time zones then, which was great, and we got some sleep. So I had one person report into me in a previous role, and that was, I suppose, like a baptism of fire again. It's like you just get in and you look at what this in the same kind of scenario. How did I learn? What did I pick up? What do I need to do to improve? So for me, the way I kind of generally approach things is it's knowledge sharing, I suppose, first off. So you want the team to learn, you want the team to build, and you want the team to grow along with you, along with the company, and make them feel like they're important in the company, which they are. Of course, we're team players, and we're within payroll. You don't have the opportunity to sit back and withhold information, because if that's the case, well, then things are just going to go wrong. You need to have your open communication. As I say, so when we have a new hire at the moment, we got a new team member in the last couple of months, which is great. And so at the moment we're going through a transition process where I'm handing over some work to her, and she's getting involved in it. So every step along the way, you're like, okay, so we're showing the process, and then you're saying, okay, so let's scroll back here a few minutes and say, okay, so this is the process, but do you actually understand what's happening here? So for example, equity can be a bit of a challenge for some people. I know for when you're not used to dealing with it, and it's not something that you may be 100% comfortable at. Like, you could read up on it all day, but that doesn't mean that you fully understand or what's actually happening within payroll, because every country has different rules and what needs to be reported, what's not reported. So for me, it's the way I approach it is, okay, we've done this now, but now tell me what's actually happening here. And you'll know pretty quick if people understand what's happening or if they don't. And then you step back and you say, okay, well, let's look at it in different lights or different angles, whatever. And you'll see the lights starting to go on then, and you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of making sense now, because you're walking through it. So I suppose knowledge sharing and going into for me, I'm a finer detail kind of person. I like to know the details, because if I don't understand it, nobody else, I can't explain it to somebody else. So yeah. It's the understanding part of it for me, and then putting that into the knowledge sharing that with somebody in a way that they're comfortable and they're getting to understand it.
Yeah.
I suppose another aspect of bringing people along is understanding the gaps. I mean, so what I mean by that is somebody might be a brilliant processor and so efficient with on Excel and all of this, and I suppose just the normal general day-to-day of processing payroll. But are there gaps? Like, where are the gaps within each entity? And is it a case that you need to look at, let's say the employment law side of it, on like vacation rules, or just generally on a month by month and week by week basis, that you're adding something extra in, so they're getting used to understanding holistically exactly what's going on. So when it comes to handing over, let's say, an entity in totality, you're like, okay, this is what you're getting. If you have any questions, come back to me. And generally you'll find is, if they have the knowledge at that point in time, they can run with it, and they're learning along the way then. And I know from experience where you're looking at something and you're saying, okay, I'll just go and ask the question. You know what you're doing as a manager, you know what you're doing over there, but I need to learn by myself. So you go off and research or come back. And like that with visibility, you're saying, okay, let's come back and revisit this kind of holiday process, or what the rules and regulations are in whatever particular entity. And if you see that they're getting it, well, then you're good. You're doing your job, because you're letting people have the autonomy to go and do whatever they need to do all the time. You're making sure that things are being processed correctly.
So it sounds like is it fair to say that there's a bit of a sort of a growth plan, so to speak, where you say, let's make sure that you get a new person in the team. You first focus on establishing some of the the basic blocking and tackling capabilities, and then as you identify, okay, so they're now able to, they've got the hang of this, the foundational pieces, then you start to look at where are some of the other areas where, I want this person, or I need this person to be able to step up and take on additional responsibilities over time. And you have kind of a sort of a step-by-step growth plan for that team member, how you and the team member obviously expect to, evolve and develop and grow that profile that the person comes in with.
Yeah, I think that's important. And by having open communication with somebody, with your team, and you're saying, okay, so tell me what your goals, your aspirations, what you want to get out of the company. Yes, it's good for me that I have someone that's able to come in and do A, B, and C, but what about this person? What are they going to do in 3 or 4 years' time? Where do they want to go? And as a manager, that's my responsibility to make sure that this happens, or put them in a position that they're comfortable and they're capable of it. And so you're all of the time you're building on their skills, you're building on what they've learned already, and their skill set. So whether that be moving on to an additional course within, let's say, looking at CIPP, or whether it's IPAS management, or whether it's something in one of the European entities, you're constantly looking for how it's not even a case of push somebody, because I think they have that ambition that they're going to want to do it anyway.
Right.
But you're assisting, and you're making sure that where they want to go is well, first of all, it has to be with the company, in the interest of the company, and then the interest of the employee. So but I do find if it's with, let's say, in line with the company requirements or the company goals, it's easier to get buy-in from the company. So
of course,
So if I go looking for funding for a course somewhere down the line, that the company's like, you put up a case and you're saying, well, look, this is what we're going, this is where the company is going, we need to follow suit.
Right.
And then it keeps engagement. It keeps the employee engaged. It keeps they have that work balance then, where they know they're learning, they know they're progressing, and the company is benefiting from it as well, because our own internal knowledge, we're not relying heavily on the ICP. So but we know that the provider is always there to as backup.
Right.
It's always good to have that knowledge in the background.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is just open, transparent conversation from both sides, from the team member that you're managing, in terms of what their aspirations and interests are, but also from your side as a manager, but also the company, representing the company, in terms of where you see their strength, where you maybe see areas for development that you believe they need to still work on, is how this all comes together. Basically, you get a sense for where the employee ultimately wants to end up, and you're reflecting against that where you see them right now, and so it sounds to me like this. And you mentioned the word pull, but then also push. It's a little bit of both, right? Where the employee might pull in a certain direction, but you also need to push them into directions that are important to make sure that the work that needs to get done gets done in the best possible way for the company, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first and foremost, we're employed by the company to do our job. I suppose that's the reason why we're here. And right. After that, it's the next thing. I think our responsibility as managers is to make sure that we're hitting goals. We're hitting our personal goals, and we're hitting our professional goals. And I think both of those are they're definitely 100% linked. You grow as you give somebody the autonomy to grow professionally and personally. They will gather, I suppose, confidence in themselves. They'll have the confidence to stand up I think at any level, they could stand up and speak to a CEO, the CFO, whatever the case may be in any organization, and put a point across if and when that it's needed. But there obviously has to be buy-in from the company for this to happen. So, and identifying this, and it all comes through the same kind of scenario where you're starting at the bottom, you're working your way up, and you're looking at these little links on what you can do to help this person develop, and give them the confidence to step up if and when it's needed.
Right. And just on that point, in terms of it needs buy-in from the company, in your experience in a payroll context, is that something that is relatively easy to, get the powers to be in the organization to say, sure, these people need the training and let's send them on a course, or let's have them do this or that? Or do you find that that's actually one of the sort of big hurdles to overcome? And if so, if you think it's not that easy to get the buy-in, are there any specific ways how you in your in your past experience have managed to get that buy-in?
I think it's twofold. There's it can be very split. So I'll go back to Paycheck Plus, where the bureau that we worked on, and they had an absolutely fantastic mentality around training. So when looking at software, when looking at changing providers, when looking at budget updates, they were always on top of it. And I'm like, okay, so what is your plan? Do you want to go to this budget meeting? Do you want to look at what's happening within Ireland? Do you want to go and upskill in? I know there was in-house Excel courses. There were facilitate in upskilling. I know there was a course that I was looking at doing, and it wasn't really 100% relative to the bureau, but at the same time, like, okay, they could see the value in it because it's all you're looking at legislation and all of this kind of stuff. So it's like, yes, absolutely, go and do it. So that was facilitated. And because that's payroll specific, it was very easy to get buy-in from a company. And you're sitting as a department that's not really seen unless something kind of goes wrong.
Right, exactly.
That can be a way that can that companies can see payroll. And they were getting more and more time at the table, which is great. But I think companies are now seeing the value add of the payroll department, and I think it's becoming easier and easier to get funding towards courses for additional learning, for upskilling. Once you I know definitely within Tenable, once you put your case across that, they will say, absolutely, let's look at it, and they will look at the value add, and that's definitely something that will be encouraged to go, and whether it be personal development, professional development. I do think it's becoming a lot easier compared to what it was. Having the time to do it, that's also that's freeing up time to do it as well would be I suppose that's the hurdle that we all need to cross next.
Right. Yeah, that's another big challenge, right? It's not only getting buy-in from management, but also you need to just be able to do it, right? So it takes a conscious effort to set aside that time, right, and make sure that you're not. It's easy to get pulled into the day-to-day hustle, right, and let trainings get pushed back and get postponed. But I think that's a great observation, that in payroll you really need to make a conscious decision that training is important, right? Otherwise it's always easy to find yourself too busy to not devote the time to it.
I think it will become a case where people will schedule it into a calendar the same way that they would with anything else in relation to payroll. I think it's a good way to start, and then it becomes, once you start it becomes the habit, and then the habit becomes the norm. So yeah, progression and learning is definitely something that should be treated the same way as month end.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of the things, one of the biggest probably growth steps in someone's career, and you kind of touched on it with your own experience that you shared, where I think it was, you mentioned it in the experience before you went to Paycheck Plus, you kind of ended up succeeding someone who was leading the team because that person left, but you kind of got thrown into the deep end without, necessarily a planned, development path there. And these things happen, right? Suddenly you find yourself in a bigger role managing a team. But I'm wondering, is there, in your experience, any best practices or how do you prepare someone? I suppose is my question, right? If there is time to prepare someone, and it doesn't just happen overnight where now suddenly there's a big gap and someone just has to step in. Then obviously sometimes you don't have the luxury of grooming someone, fostering someone. But what are the things that you would recommend doing for someone who wants to move into a leadership role?
I suppose straight off, it's support. You're right. I think everybody's different, but if you have somebody, if somebody was coming to me and saying, look, in 3 years' time, I want to be a team lead, or I want to be a payroll manager, or whether it be in this organization or another organization, you should be giving them the skills and opportunities that they need in order to get to where they want to go. So I find giving somebody the autonomy to look at processes, to make mistakes, to step up to the plate and say, okay, where am I going next? And what do I need to do? So if they're asking the right questions, say, what do I need to do in order for me to get from A to B? Definitely the autonomy side of it, and letting them stand up and make mistakes without having any consequences. Yes, it's okay to make mistakes, but if you're doing it on a constant level, it's like, okay, so now I'm identifying the skills that you need in order to, in 3 months' time, if something comes across your desk, that you're going to sit back and you're going to think about it rather than jumping in and processing something and then afterwards going, oh, okay. So being a leader and being a processor is, I think your mindset needs to change. And identify, I think there's two things. Like, yeah, I do think there's the professional side of it, where yes, these are the skills you need in order to do it. Then there's the personal side of it,
Yeah.
and how your personality actually fits into that. Are you like, if you had somebody that was shy and timid and like to sit at the back of the room, and are they the right person for the job? Are they not? Is there something that you can do to help to bring them out of their shell, I suppose, and let them step into that? But again, should be, you'll identify that with the open communication with somebody, and you know where you need to bring them. Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing is identifying the skill set and where they need to go. I think one of the best quotes was, train somebody to leave, but treat them like you want to stay. You want them to stay.
I like that. Yeah. Equip them so that they can take on other, things. But of course, if they're really good, you want them to
exactly
apply those things in your organization, not somewhere else.
Yeah. You don't want to. You definitely want to upskill people where they can step up to the plate, because I suppose what I was saying previously is that you have people that are just happy to come in to process payrolls, but if you have somebody that has that ambition and they want to drive and they have the drive to move on to the next level, give them the tools that they need to succeed. Don't be afraid of somebody walking out the door. If they walk out the door and they go into a management level, you've done your job correctly.
Right.
and they're happy by upskilling and by leading somebody and bringing somebody on the journey with you. Well, from my experience anyway, they'll stay with you, they'll be happy, they'll be engaged. They're not going to be every Monday ringing in sick going, oh, I don't really feel like it today. But you won't have that when you're
motivated.
Their goals are the same as your goals, and it's
Now you said something interesting there a minute ago about I guess you refer to the person that stepping into a leadership role to their personality, and I suppose when you're looking at the progression of someone, there's always the sort of professional progression of someone. There's always the more technical side, the technical skills, right? Just taking on more complex topic areas and being, more holistically responsible for the outcomes and so on, and knowing how to deal with those and applying your experience. But then there's also, the soft factors, I suppose, that, we'd like to refer to. And I'm curious, in your own, transition from being an individual contributor to taking on leadership roles, what were some of the biggest sort of non-technical, more soft factor skills, capabilities that you had to learn, or that you've seen other people, grappling with as they've moved into leadership roles?
I think there's a few, I think, that we could probably sit here and talk about it all day, but I think the one of the biggest ones is, for me, is you're building that rapport with people all of the time. So when you get into a leadership position, or when you're training somebody to get into a leadership position, that you kind of know how to deal with people. So across all, I suppose, departments, across all, I suppose, ICPs, or anybody that you deal with in payroll on a daily or monthly basis, that you're building up this communication. Well, you're building communication, which is a fantastic skill to have, good communication skills. And then once you start building the rapport with somebody, I suppose the follow on to that is that you're getting good working relationship. You know how things work. Then how you deal with people and how they deal with you, is you will see a different outcome. So if you have like an aggressive personality, you might have somebody on the other side that you've probably never seen apart from a quick Zoom meeting, and I suppose changing the way that you actually communicate with somebody will have a different response, or you'll get a different outcome. I think also actively listening.
Mm-hmm.
We go through day after day after day, and we're having meetings after meetings and Zooms, but if you're sitting back and you're actually listening to what somebody is saying, there might be something just there that you might pick up on, whether that be an additional call that you need to say, hey, I kind of noticed that you raised a point earlier, but now you failed to you didn't bring it up on the call. Is there something going on? Is there something happening, or do you need me to walk you through something, or is there something else going on? So I think we're not just responsible for the person on a professional level, because we're not in the office all day every day now. We're seeing different traits of personalities, but I think you need to be more clued into what you're looking for.
And is this something that you, in your experience, it's mostly something that you just kind of learn by doing, it's learning on the job, or have you identified, are there courses that you would have, put people on, to train some of these more soft skills, right? Do you just like, better listening skills, or better, people interaction, communication skills, and those kind of things?
I do find I actually seen something last week. There was a course I was on, kind of like a management course, and at the end of the course, they had a graph, and it was basically 20% of 20% of our skills is what we're taught, and the other 80% is what we're actually doing on the job.
Okay.
So, and I think that's pretty accurate.
Right.
So with working with people day in, day out, you will see something, and it's instinctive, where you'll find something that probably you need to work on, or whether that could be even myself, for example. And I did a disc assessment with the company a couple of months back, and honestly, it kind of nearly changed my life, because it identified personality traits that I wasn't aware of that makes me tick. So when you're identifying these, and you still see them on a daily basis, you're like, oh, okay, I'm thinking this way because of this was said, or you're picking up on buzzwords, whatever the case may be. But it's definitely, the disc assessment is something, if it's done correctly, is game changer.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So learning about yourself, I guess, and your own sort of ways of, how you deal with certain situations, and then knowing how to apply that in a professional context, right?
Yeah, because if you know how you're dealing with yourself, and then you're passing that down to the team, and you're saying, okay, team, let's have this conversation about a project that's coming up, for example. And you're getting insights, you're getting thoughts, and what way that you're filtering that down to the team. And if there's conflict then within the team, that you know how to deal with it. You're not, and then the team, you're not snappy, or you're not saying something that you shouldn't say, or in a manner that you shouldn't be saying it, and you identify that pretty quick. And you pull back, and you let the team say have their conversations and deal with things, and everybody's personality is different. So knowing how to identify and how to communicate with a team, I think it's a great skill to have.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. All right. Perfect. Well, listen, before we go, one of the things, Paul, we always like to do is something that we call the lightning round, which is a list of questions that I'll ask you, and you just respond with whatever comes to mind first. No right or wrong answers, but just a little bit of fun, and getting to know you a little bit more. So you ready? Here we go.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I remember being about 6 and thinking that I wanted to be a barrister.
A barrister. Oh, that's different. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah,
Nice
I think
one.
that was the first one that
Yeah.
that I remember. I was like, oh, okay. I think after that, then it was a fireman. So it was like from one end of the spectrum to the other.
I was going to say big swings. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got pulled into payroll. That's nice. Next one is, what has been the funniest situation or funniest experience that you've had to deal with as a payroll manager?
Geez. I think I think when I had joined payroll first, the first company that I was with, we were looking after some expenses for a CEO, and so with that, so there's a director and a CEO. So the director came in, and who was a female, with her expenses, and the CEO was a male, and she had put down on expenses, she was claiming back passport photographs for the CEO. And my manager, God, I'll never forget it. My manager was like, how can she actually get photographs done for the CEO for his actual passport? I'm like, maybe it's just a case of picking up the passport photographs, and this is the expense for it. like getting on the phone and what is actually happening here? How can you get your how can you get passport photos done? That doesn't make sense. Like that. I'm picking up the passport photographs. We just started laughing because it's just one of these like really, really weird things that you just don't think of. It was it doesn't really sound, it was a case of having to be there, but we laughed for about 20 minutes after that, like full belly laughs. It was so funny because all we could see was like the picture of the director on the CEO's passport. Like, what's going on? It's crazy. Yeah, funny.
That is pretty unusual. What gives you most satisfaction about your job?
I suppose it's twofold. One, I suppose the first is getting people paid on time. That gives me great satisfaction that everything is done and dusted and we're closing off the month. I suppose the second part then is just dealing with, I suppose, helping people out when if there's issues, if there's queries, if there's resolving problems. I suppose the next big thing. I think that's part of our day-to-day job is troubleshooting and problem solving. So that part of it gives me, I really get a smile out of that when we close stuff off and I've helped somebody.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's never a shortage of problems and challenges in payroll, right? So you're, I guess, you'll never run out of satisfaction on that end as long as you can figure out how to resolve those challenges as they come up. And I think your other point about getting people paid, I think speaks volumes to the fact that at the end of the day, payroll is still very much a people function, right? With all the technical aspects and the legislation and the vendors you deal with and the technology. At the end of the day, it's you're managing your making sure that people's livelihood gets paid out.
You can't get any more personal than with everybody than with payroll. So I mean, you affect everybody in the company essentially, or everybody that you're responsible for. So I suppose also just to add to that last one, Mark, based on most of the conversation we've had today, is like the team, making sure, like being satisfied that the team is satisfied. I think that's a big one, and that's kind of like a new one where it's like, okay, so people are happy, people are engaged, they're enjoying what they're doing, and by seeing that happiness, it kind of, I suppose, transfers across to say, okay, I must be doing something right as a leader.
Yeah,
be going okay. Or
your team, your payroll team, you're talking about now. Yeah. Which I think is not something to be taken for granted, right? Because payroll is always very stressful. And it's unfortunately, there's too many organizations where you witness people just getting burned out. So I think as much as you can make sure that people are, with all the stress that invariably will exist in a function like this, if you can make sure that people still get the get their own personal satisfaction out of what they're doing and feel supported and feel that the company values what they're doing. I think that's absolutely crucial.
I think stress is I think a certain element of stress is a good thing. I think because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. You get into it. But there is a fine line though where you have this a natural nice part of stress where you have to meet this timeline, you need to do this, but at the back end of it, you're making sure that your team is good, they enjoyed that stress. It's enjoyable stress. It's not pushing them over the edge stress. And once they have that part, they're enjoying that little part of it as well, and it's pushing along. I think you learn an awful lot from that. From that aspect, I find.
Yeah, it's a fine balance, like you said. It's a bit like people that do running, right? You need to find that runner's high.
Yeah.
That allows you to go that much, extra energy being released without burning out, right? Last one for a lightning round. Imagine I'm a 5-year-old and explain to me what is payroll.
Oh God. What is payroll? Jeez. It's the bottom right-hand corner of a payslip.
But what's a payslip would be my next question as the 5-year-old.
5-year-old.
Yeah.
It's I'm the person that makes that gives you the oh God almighty, I don't know, Mark. That's a bloody tough question.
I think you sort of already answered it with the previous question when you said, your satisfaction comes from making sure that people get paid what they're being owed, right, by the company. Yeah. I think that kind of, to me, anyways, is really what sums up payroll, what payroll's all about, right? Payroll needs to make sure that people are doing their job, and as people work, they get paid for it. And
that's exactly it. Something after springing to mind. I remember coming back from school. So a couple of years ago, I won't say many years ago, and it was during winter. So when I was coming up to where we were living, there's I found an envelope on the ground, and it was after being raining. And I picked the envelope up, and I just opened it, and there was like a bunch of cash in it. Like, oh my goodness, what the hell is going on here? So obviously I just closed it up, put it in my pocket, went straight home, said to my parents, "Oh look, I'm after finding this on the ground." And so my dad just opened it up, and it was somebody's paycheck. Oh, wow. with a pay slip in it.
Yeah.
And this person actually just lived up around the corner from us. And so myself and Dad went up around the corner, and he knocked on the door, and Garrett came in, and so Dad was like, he's after finding this on the ground. Like, I honestly, to this day, I couldn't tell you how much was in it. And so it's like, oh, I don't think it's mine. I said, oh, okay. So like, give it back and we find out whose it is. I said, I'll just give you a second. So she then checked her handbag, whatever was, back to it. It is actually mine. I said, I must have dropped it out of my handbag on the way in. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, she had no money. And like, this is going back to the day, obviously, before
credit cards and
having credit cards and all this kind of, she might have had, but going back that long ago, she probably didn't. And yeah, I just remember her being so happy about getting it back, because if somebody else had picked it up and put it in her pocket and never said anything, that's it. She had no money for it, like either for feed the kids or whatever the case would be. So
yeah,
that's first memory of payroll. Yeah. Paycheck.
That's it. Well, listen, this is it for the session today, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experience. Very inspiring and informative. The kind of things that you've picked up along the way. How to continually grow in a payroll function and bring your team members along. And I think it's, as you said, somewhere in our conversation, it's easy to get swept up by the day-to-day hustle and bustle in payroll, but I think it is so important for all of us working in this world to step back, make time for personal development, for career development, whether it's technical skills or more soft skills. So I think great conversation, great topic, and again, thank you so much, Paul, for joining us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was
very good.
All right. So for everyone here, this is it for today's episode. Again, go out, check out some of our other content that other plug and pay episodes that are out there, and please spread the word. Hit the subscription button so you can make sure you get future episodes as well. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. Until then, have a great day.